In this video and the next upcoming 10 videos, we'll talk about creating an email scheduling app using Spring Boot and Quartz. So make sure that you have your prerequisites ready before you start this playlist. So I would quote this playlist as an advanced playlist where you need to have some amount of good prerequisites before you start this particular one, because we'll be covering the part where we talk about Quartz mainly and Spring Boot and how they both can get together to create an email scheduling app. But we will not talk about some really important topics which come under Java, Spring Boot, MySQL, and REST APIs. For example, how a controller works, how auto wiring works in Spring, how we can use connect our application to a database. So all of this should be a prerequisite before you start this playlist. So make sure that you have these skills ready before you start this playlist. And let's get started. So in this playlist, we'll talk about a very important, a very good framework called as Quartz. So Quartz is a open source job scheduling library that can be integrated with in virtually any Java application. So it can be a smallest standalone application or it can be a part of a very large e-commerce system. So Quartz can be used to create simple or complex jobs, even tens and thousands of jobs, and these are defined as standard Java components that may execute virtually anything you may program them to do. So in our playlist, in our situation, we will be scheduling emails, and we'll be having an email job which will deal with taking up somebody's email, the subject and the body, and scheduling them as per we need. So you can have an email that is being sent out when a person has their birthday. You can send out a birthday email, or if you want to send them or remind them of something, you just schedule that as a reminder for somebody else. So this is a very good way to learn about how Spring Boot works with other variety of frameworks, Quartz being a great example. And we also learn how to actually build a real world example of what we are learning when it comes to concepts. So in this video, we'll learn how to schedule jobs in Spring Boot using the Quartz scheduler by building a simple email scheduling application. The application will have a REST API that allows clients to schedule emails at a later time. We'll be using MySQL to persist all the jobs and other job related data. So this is the timeline for the videos. So we have our first video, which is the introduction of Quartz and creating the application. Next, we have configuring the MySQL database, the Quartz scheduler, and the mail sender framework. Third video is going to be about creating Quartz tables. So Quartz has a set of tables by themselves which they use to manage the data behind scheduling a job. So we look at that. Next, we talk about some basic terminologies which Quartz has to offer, such as job data map, job key, a query job descriptor, a trigger, and so on. Next, we start building our application from video 5, where we first create the request and response payloads. What information do we get from the user, the JSON, and what do we actually show them as the response. Then we'll be creating the controllers for scheduling email. So a schedule email, update email, pause or resume a schedule, and so on and so forth. Next will be a controller for getting the emails, following an email scheduler service, which is basically the heart of our application. The email job, which is going to be what you actually want to send in the email, and finally we'll be running and testing our entire API in the final video. So this is what we have in plan for the upcoming playlist. So make sure that you follow through, you watch all the videos, and please let me know if you have any doubts in the comments below. So let's get started. So the first thing which we need to do is go to spring.io, start.spring.io, where we basically initialize our application using their web interface and directly start with a predefined project. So we don't have to worry about a new project, creating them from scratch on IntelliJ, etc. etc. So go to start.spring.io, give it a new artifact name. So you can just say email scheduler, and we need to add a few dependencies here. So the first dependency is going to be web, second is going to be JPA, third is going to be Quartz. Next we go on to MySQL, and finally we end it with Java Mail Sender. So these are all the dependencies that we need to actually start creating our email scheduler application with its REST API. So next, click on generate and it will create a zip file or a compressed file which you can extract on your local machine, and then you can open it in your favorite IDE. So in my case, I'm using IntelliJ IDE for Mac, but any IDE which supports Java, Spring, and Spring Boot should work here. So this is the IDE which I use. It's free for Mac OS, free for Windows as well. You probably have a 30-day free license, so you can use that for this video and the upcoming videos. So let's get started. So once you have created your Spring Boot project, you have to open it in your schedule in favorite IDE, and you can see your project live here. So here, when you can see, if you go to source main Java, we already have a starter project ready in front of us, which we can directly start and see how it works. Next, we have our pom.xml, and here we have our dependencies that we need. So we have our JPA, we have our mail, Quartz, and web. Give it a good description. So Quartz scheduler or email scheduler. We can add an email scheduler for using Quartz, and you have a very simple project ready to make your first scheduler using Quartz. So in the next video, we'll talk about configuring MySQL database, Quartz scheduler, and mail sender. So this will deal with the application properties of our application, where we add the server URL for MySQL database. We add some interesting configurations for Quartz scheduler, basically how it works, the ins and outs of Quartz, and also the mail sender. So we'll be using a framework which helps us schedule mail via code. So we need to also talk about some settings from Gmail which we have to allow, so that we are able to actually make SMTP calls from our code to the Gmail server. So all of this will be covered in the next video, where we keep continuing our process of scheduling email applications. Now, if you want any help with your resume, any technical doubts which you want to clarify, you can definitely send me an email, and which is in the description below. And if you have any questions regarding the installation of Quartz or setting up the project using start.spring.io, let me know in the comments, and I'll make sure that I answer all the queries as soon as possible. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.